everybody, and I am Bethany Autumn, and this is the Bear All podcast, where we will be bearing all. Today, we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into something that I started to touch base on in episode one, and that was like my journey of starting over. And I feel like that journey for me really happened with the day that I finally had the courage to leave my ex husband. Now, mind you, I we're just gonna start off with like how I met him, how that even happened in the first place. So I was 15 when I met him, and he was coming into the school that I was at the time to um, replace the music teacher as she was going off on maternity leave. So I was 15 at the time. I think he was 30 because there is a 15-year age gap between the two of us. And so he taught at the school my entire ninth grade year. And then 10th grade came around. I dropped out of high school and I really, really struggled to like, I was dealing with so many different mental health issues from stuff from childhood trauma to just being a teenager and developing and just sort of emotional changes, sexual changes, so many different things about my body and my mind that were just really causing a very, really difficult time for me to just sort of mentally process anything. And I think it was a lot of my childhood traumas, which I will have an episode where I like dive deep into those. But not today. Today we're really focusing about like me developing and changing from being groomed and then to becoming this independent person. So, you know, by time I was 17, dropped out of high school about 3 months into 10th grade. And while he was my music teacher, he always favored me. He always took special care and attention to everything that I did. He would buy me food and snacks and different things. Even to the point that like he started buying my lunches because I always, even in middle school, before I ever met him, the music room always was my safe space. Like I always felt so safe. So I would go down there for my lunches, and just any extra period study halls, anything that I had, I would go to the music room because that's where I felt safe. That's where I wanted to spend my time, whether it was messing around on the piano, borrowing a guitar to mess around with. I played two different instruments when I was in school, so it was like any time that I could be with music and just like lock myself in a lesson room or spend time with the teachers that were down there. It just really, really felt like a place that I could just go be safe. So like, why would it be any different when I got into high school? And so there was, this sort of this thing that sort of felt different with him, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I really liked that he paid so much attention to me. I felt really lonely in high school. I felt sort of isolated from people. I would always bounce around to different groups. I never had like a one friend group. I was always like with whatever group would accept me at that time. I always would like change my outfits or the way I looked. I was kind of a chameleon and would sort of just like form into whatever felt right at that time. And that was really difficult because I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a place where it was like we didn't accept a lot of things that were like different, tiny town, very more like country lifestyle. I feel like I probably would have done better in a big city. I never really felt like I had a place. And I was severely bullied in middle school. So by the time I got to high school, I was really just trying to like figure out a way to be like, I don't want to be bullied anymore. I want to try to make different friend groups, be part of different things. And it just for some reason never worked out. But I was always still able to be part of the music department. Like the music department always still felt safe. Why would it be any different? 10th grade came around. He's no longer working at the school. I don't feel like I have that person that I can go and talk to anymore. I start getting homeschooled. I drop out of high school, start getting homeschooled. And now my mom's my teacher, which if anybody's ever been homeschooled, like it is so difficult to have your mom or maybe it was your dad, just having a parent be your parent and your teacher is just like way too much. I wasn't successful in that. That was really starting to cause a lot of problems. So then my mom ended up hiring him to come and teach me because he was a really great teacher when I was at school. So why not have him come and help me at home? And so he came and started teaching me at home, and that was it was good at first, like it was fine. And then I just was really, really struggling and ended up like really starting to like lose my studies and not being able to do that. So, long story short, stopped doing school pretty much completely. Couldn't really stand it. My mom and I were constantly fighting. We didn't really have a good relationship at that point in my life. And my mom pretty much gave me an ultimatum. You either need to get back into school, find some alternative schooling, or you need to get a job or you're out. You got to get out of here. So, wasn't able to do anything. Mind you, I'm 17, so like a lot of the jobs in my town that I could have gotten weren't like I didn't have a car. I lived 5 miles from town, which that's like a long walk. So it was like I really didn't have any other options. So I ended up getting kicked out. Like at 17, I got kicked out of the house and I went and lived with a friend. And when I was there, this music teacher of mine still continued to pay attention to me and talk to me and came over and would start helping me write music because that's something that I really loved. So he helped me write some music. And that's when the sexual act started between the two of us because now, mind you, I'm not at home. I'm away at another place where I'm not really being watched. And I want to be an adult. I want to be by myself. I want to do all these things, whatever. And so he starts helping me write music. And that's when that sexual stuff started to begin. And mind you, this man is in a full blown relationship with another adult woman who he's lived with for like almost a decade. So that's when things just start to go like in my mind, I'm kind of losing it because I'm like, okay, well, now we're a thing. We're doing stuff. So now we're a thing. And now he's telling me that it's a thing. And then all of the, more inappropriate conversations start and all of this stuff starts to happen and our relationship starts to build. Eventually, my family starts to take notice and realize, okay, I think something's happening between the two of them. And they call us out on it. He openly admits that it is. Eventually, he ends up leaving his girlfriend at the time to be with me and move out and get an apartment. He blames all his financial difficulties and everything on me and like, oh, well, no, now that I don't have this spousal support from this person that I've been with for this long, things are more difficult, et cetera, et cetera. The relationship progresses. I end up having to go off to Glenmont Job Corps so I can get my GED and a trade, which I ended up getting my CNA. And it just sort of like, it's just like this snowball effect into like me growing up really, really, really quickly because now I have to like be an adult because there is no other option because at that point I'm like, I can't go back to school. If I go back to my school, people are going to say these things. This thing is going to happen. I'm panicking. I'm young. I'm already a child who is clearly broken enough that I cannot function in high school, let alone now I'm, sleeping with my former music teacher and like my life feels like it's just falling apart and the only thing that I can do is continue to dive deep into this relationship with this man because he keeps saying that he's going to take care of me. He's going to protect me. He's going to love me. He's going to love me like no one's ever loved me. And I truly, truly believe that because I honestly had never felt any form of love other than the love that I knew within my family, which was unfortunately really broken and just not the kind of love that anybody should have to know is their only form of love. No, I know that my family loves me very, very much, but it's taken a really, really long time for me to process the traumas that I went through in my childhood. Like I said, we will dive into those at a different episode. And I dive deep into it into my book. So one day when my book is done, you guys could read all about that. Um, but it was just like really, I was so vulnerable. And because he was my teacher, like, okay, I know everybody kind of experiences this, but when you're young and you're in school and you're going through a really difficult time, there's always that one teacher that you can kind of go to and talk to that just makes you feel validated and safe and heard. And maybe not everybody had this experience, but I know that a lot of did. A lot of people did, even to the point that like I know a lot of people who connected with their art, music, teachers. If you were a jock or you were like super big into like athletic stuff, that you probably like found like a coach that you were able to like really connect with. And for me it was always the music teachers, and like I felt really safe talking to my elementary and middle school music teachers. So like I said, why would it be any different in high school? And I loved my music teacher that I had in high school before she went on maternity leave, but once she left it just never was the same, because this man entered the situation and he like kind of just like got into my head so much, and I started to like believe all of his opinions and his thoughts, and he just made me feel so special. Like that it was just, even to the point with, like I mentioned, him buying me lunches and stuff. It got to the point where other students started coming down and seeing that he would buy me a sandwich, that he would start taking like everybody's sandwich order the day before, so that way he didn't have to stop buying me sandwiches. He would buy everybody sandwiches. Like, and it was only like 5 students at most, maybe, but like it was still like that is not a normal thing that a teacher does, because it's like, well, they can go down to the lunchroom and get their food. Like, why are you? Those are not things that I processed in my mind. It just made me feel special. And I liked it because I didn't feel special. Nobody made me feel special. I was kind of weird and goofy and awkward. I loved Lady Gaga. Some days I would dress up and look like I just walked out of a Lady Gaga music video with crazy heels on and fishnet tights and like a crazy blouse with like multiple layers of belts and crazy jewelry, and I would crimp my hair and do makeup, and like I would dress up super weird and wild, and I loved that. Like I like always knew that I was bisexual and that was also something like in that town, like I couldn't really be open and honest about it. And then um and then other days I would literally wear stuff like this, where I was like in a sweatsuit and I wouldn't do my hair and makeup, and or I would wear camouflage because I grew up in the country, so I went hunting and I would have like my camo jackets and camo pants and different things. So it was like my style fluctuated all the time, and it made it so I never really fit into like one particular group. Also, mind you, we were pretty poor. So like I thrifted a lot of, like we would thrift stuff, or I would get hand-me-downs, or we would get whatever I could get from Walmart at the time. Like I was super big into the Miley Cyrus liquid leggings. So my style was all over the place. And it made me feel really alone. And I also realized that it wasn't even just my style that made me feel alone. It was the fact that there was just so much trauma that I was trying to process as a young teen, that it made it really, really difficult for me to connect with anybody, whether it was my female peers, my male peers. I just really couldn't find a place to be because I was so traumatized from my childhood, and I just couldn't connect. But I could connect with an adult, because I would talk to them about all these things that happened, and they would just validate me and make me feel better. And he always just felt like a really safe space where I'm like, oh my God, I can go talk to so and so, and they're going to validate everything that I'm feeling, and they're going to help me. Like, and I sucked at test taking, so I would struggle with testing, and I would go down and he'd like, all right, well, let me help you study for this test. So it was just like I always felt so safe. And then that safety for me turned into what felt like love. I was like, wow, I really love you. And then that's when I truly feel like I started getting taken advantage of, because I'm like, wow, I've like now told you, like, mind you, this is at the time that I have now been kicked out of my house. I am now living with some family friends who, while I felt safe with, they weren't watching me and taking care of me the way that I needed to be, because I was clearly a little bit of a delinquent teen that was going to be very, headstrong and like gonna do my own thing and stuff. And also, not to mention, they're letting this person in to help me in a secluded space. And that is, you trust another adult to be an adult and not do those things with a 17. So he's 32, I'm 17. That's not appropriate ever. I would constantly, like, in my head, validate it so many different ways. When I was 17, I was like, it's fine, I'm an adult, this and that, and he loves me, so it's okay. Now, mind you, this man is cheating on his girlfriend with a 17-year-old former student. That is not okay. And I it took me so long, like, even to the point that, like, I thought that that was okay. Like, I was angry about it, but I thought it was okay because he said he loved me. And then, and then all that stuff happens, and I'm now flash forward to me being 18. I believe I was 18. Um so that started like December of when I was 17. My birthday's in March. So I turned 18 shortly into this relationship starting. So mind you, this man's pretty smart. Like, oh, 17. Age of consent. She'll be 18 soon. We can, whatever. And so, like, he moves out from his ex-girlfriend's, gets an apartment. I'm going to Glenmont Job Corps, trying to, I got my GED when I was 17. I actually had to cross over into Vermont, because in New York State you can't get your GED until your GED until you are 18. So I had to go to Vermont to get this GED. Um, and I'm in and out of I I think I was in and out of Job Corps in like 6 months, because I started January, I was out in May. I think that's like 5 months, whatever. And get my GED. I got my CNA, and it's so crazy. I just want to quickly, briefly touch on this story of when I was getting my CNA. And I was so brainwashed at this point that I was going to be this man's wife. Like, he would just tell me, I'm going to take care of you, blah, blah. He went and bought me a promise ring. So when I was at Job Corps, like, I had a ring on my finger so nobody else would take me. Any time that he could come and visit me and even just sit in the parking lot and talk with me and brainwash me more, he would. He was just like so determined on making me his wife one day and taking care of me, and I'll take care of you. You never have to work a day in your life. You can just be a housewife. You can clean the dishes, you could do the laundry, you could do this and just take care of things, etc. So in my mind, that's like what I started to build up, that I'm like, someone's going to take care of me. Yay. Like, delusional 17-year-old mind. um and so when I was there and I was I finished getting my GED, and I really wanted to leave. And I was like, I don't want to get a CNA. Why do I need a CNA? Why do I need a trade? All I need is a degree so I can feel like I'm doing something. And it was just like, I had the director of the nursing program sit me down, and she pulled me into her office, and oh my God, this lady just, I remember just giving her so much attitude and being like, I don't want my CNA. Why do I need my CNA? I just want my GED. I just want to be out. This man's going to marry me. He's literally going to take care of me. Blah, 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 blah. I remember just like, if I was talking to that younger version of myself, I'd be like, you're fucking delusional. You are out of your fucking mind delusional. Get your CNA. And this is literally what she said. She was like, get your CNA, because you never know what's going to happen in that relationship. And you need something to financially support you. You need some kind of career path to be able to financially support you. God forbid that doesn't work out. And I'm like, no, it's going to work out. I'm going to be with him for the rest of my life. Like, I was so brainwashed and like, this is going to work. Mind you, thank God I did, because that's what has helped me get my jobs doing home health aid work and being able to be independent and be able to pay my bills, is because I was able to finish that program and get that certificate. And so I always just think back to that moment of her telling me, you don't know what's going to happen and you need to be able to take care of yourself. And I really truly thought I was never going to need to take care of myself, that this man was going to become my husband, take care of everything, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So dive deep into like about a year into our relationship. I'm still 18. I now have a GED and a CNA, and start working. I worked at a nursing home for a little while, and eventually got into some private care work, and then started doing some other side jobs, different things like that, whatever. And so at this time now, I live with this man, and um we have now been together for about a year. Mind you, he has not told his family about me at all. That should have been a huge red flag, but mind you, I still have like this really small mind. I didn't have a full education. I wasn't like didn't have a lot. I didn't really have a lot of dating experience. Like I had some, but nothing that was like ever to this level serious, cuz I'm freaking 18. Mind you, I've been with him since I'm 17. So like I'm missing all of these developmental milestones in my life. And I'm not going to lie, I was uneducated and naive. And unfortunately, when you are dumb, and I will say that I was dumb, you don't know when red flags pop up. You know when your feelings get hurt, but sometimes you're easily able to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to push that aside because, well, he loves me. And unfortunately, people who go through emotional abuse and manipulation don't have the physical wounds on their body for people to know that they're truly hurting. And this man just hurt me over and over and over again. You know, um, started constantly blaming things on me. Oh, well, the reason that we can't live in a nicer place is because, I don't have a better job and I don't have the financial support of another person because, you know, I left, I gave up everything to be with you. And I was like, I was 17. Like, what are you talking? So it's just like all these things where I was constantly getting blamed for his flaws. And I was like, you have not introduced me to your family. Like, this is not okay. I was just a child, and I had so many things pushed upon me. And mind you, like everything that I'm just talking about is already just completely wrong, and that doesn't even get into the sexual abuse that I endured in that relationship. And I just my mind was open to so many new things so fast that I'm just like looking back on it, looking back on all of it now, I'm just like, I hope nobody ever has to go through that type of stuff ever. Even just the emotional and manipulative part, let alone the sexual abuse. Like, I do not wish that upon my worst enemy. And just, this is exactly why I'm doing this, is because if there are people out there who are like me or have been through something even remotely similar, I want you to know that you're not alone, and that it's okay to hurt, and it's really, really good for you to heal and learn how to process the things that have happened to you and be like, it's okay that happened. It's not okay that happened, but it's okay that you can, like, you're allowed to leave and get away and become your own person and become healthier and better. If you feel like something's wrong, leave. Unfortunately, I was too young and too naive and too groomed and trained to be think a certain way, that I had no idea that I was literally living in delusion. And unfortunately, that happens to so many young women. And I know that what I'm talking about is going to hit more with women. I know that the things that I'm talking about are only going to hit a very small group of men because unfortunately, this is the stuff that women deal with day in and day out. And we've been dealing with this for literally since the beginning of time. Women have been groomed and manipulated to believe that they have to be a certain thing for a man, and it sucks. And we are finally in a day and age where we can finally really, really start standing our ground. And like, it wasn't too long ago that women got the right to vote. Like, that's like within the last 100 years, women have been able to own land, get the right to vote. And it's like, it's that is, I was so small minded. And so I mentioned that it'd been a year that I was with him before I ever got to meet his family. I finally got to the point. I remember one day I packed my bag, I went to work, and I called my mom and I called my nana, and I was crying on the phone to both of them, and I said, "Guys, like, I have been with this man for a year. He's not making moves. He has not introduced me to his family. I just feel like his plaything. I'm so upset." And I remember them both being like, "Hell yeah, you should leave. This is not okay. This is totally messed up. We completely support you if you leave." So I went to work, and I remember telling him, I was like, at the beginning of the day, I was like, now mind you, I was still so controlled by this man that I told him that I was like, "You have not told me about like your family about me. It's been a year. I can't do this right now. I packed a bag and I'm gonna go stay with my mom tonight." And honestly, that was kind of dumb. I wish that I didn't tell him that, but I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, whatever. So now this man calls up his dad and makes dinner reservations at the next to the place that I work at. So when I got out of work that evening, he came and found me when I was like walking to my car, and he's like, "Come to dinner with me. Like, my dad's waiting for us. Like, you have to come. Like, he's waiting for us. He wants to meet you. I want him to meet you." So it literally took me packing my bags and saying I'm not coming home tonight for him to like make plans with his father. We go and meet his father, and mind you, at the time, I believe I was still 18, I think. I was probably 18 at the time. I go and meet his dad. His dad's wonderful. We have a great dinner. I'm I'm starting to feel like so happy and confident of the fact that like, oh wow, you did the bare minimum. So I'm gonna be happy. I'm still living in a world of delusion. End up going back home with him that night. Things progress. He ends up introducing me to his mom and his sister later on. And I'm like, "Yay, he did the bare minimum. I should be so happy." And like, I'm so happy because he keeps telling me that he loves me. Like, I'm living in a fucking world of fucking delusion. and and then that just continues on. The manipulation, the mind games, the me constantly having to like, validate my own feelings by just being like, "He'll change," or "He loves me," or whatever, blah 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 blah. This will just get easier as I get older. It's still weird now because I'm young and I'm his former student. We were trying to like keep that hidden from people. And mind you, like I joined like I started going to the church that he was going to. I had been going to that church since I was 17. And like at first everybody just knew that I was his student. Like they didn't know that we were together. Like that was kept quiet. He's like, "You're just my student. You're interested in a new religion." So I was kind of like just living in this fucked up lie that I was just like constantly having these two faces where I was like his good student who was just being educated and learning a new religion, but my family knew that we were together, but his family didn't until I made it like, "You have to tell them or I'm leaving you." And then this church that I'm part of who didn't know that we were together for quite a long while I was going there. And then mind you, he like set me up to like learn about the religion so I could get baptized because he was Catholic and we were going to an Orthodox church. And, Catholics and Orthodox can intermarry because you're still baptized under the same, technically part of the same church, like a couple thousand years ago, but they sort of split apart, but they still acknowledge things. That's a whole different topic that I will get into. But mind you, like I got baptized at 18 because I knew that he wanted to marry me and he couldn't marry me within the church unless I was baptized. So, because I didn't grow up in the Catholic Church or Orthodox Church, I grew up as my mom was a born again Christian, Protestant, whatever you want to call it. So there was no baptism. Like that was whatever. I literally changed my religion for this man. And I broke away so many parts of myself to fit inside these boxes. And I just was constantly being hurt and manipulated. And I was just so upset that I was like not able to do the things that I wanted to do. Like literally, he would control everything, like when I would go to church, I would wear a lot of clothing because he would get angry that the other women at the church that would go there that were dressing a little bit too sexy. So I would wear stuff from head to toe, even to the point that I would wear something on my head when I would go and receive communion. And I was just like, this isn't me. This isn't what I want to do. This is it. It just all started to just become like this. I was no longer Bethany. I was this man's object. And so now, I've been part of this church for a while, into this relationship for a while. I really don't have any friends of my own. I don't even have a good relationship with my family at this point. I am just solely what this man wants me to be. 21 comes around. We ended up getting married into the Orthodox Church because we had to wait till I was 21 because I needed to have a sip of alcohol at my wedding and to make it feel more legal and okay. Wedding's a shit show. It was nice at the time. I thought it was nice at the time. Got the big white gown. Got married in an Orthodox church. Had all my friends and family there that I wanted. And looking back at it now, it's like even the people that I had stand for me. So I needed to have like in Orthodoxy, you need your maid of honor and best man to be baptized Orthodox. So he wasn't even allowed to have his best friend be his best man. And I wasn't allowed. I mean, I didn't really have friends, so I just picked somebody in the church who was really close to me at the time. And like I thought I was close to that person at the time, but looking back, I'm just like, you didn't have my fucking back through any of me going through my divorce and shit. And I'm still a little bitter about all that stuff because I really feel like I didn't have a really good friend group when I was in that marriage, that when I left, I was completely alone. Like I was on an island. Being in that marriage, I became part of an island. That when I left, I had to swim away from that island and leave everybody behind. I just sort of blocked everybody from that part of my life. I was like, I can't do this. It was too much. So I lost everybody. That isolated me. That, you know, being being surrounded by so many people all the time that don't actually know you is one of the most lonely things. And I think a lot of us have experienced that to a certain degree. But for me personally, it was like I was in prison. Like I truly felt like I was like, I can't be myself. I can't do any of the things that I want. I did eventually start to get a couple of friends from being in college. Now, mind you, the only reason that I ever even went to college to begin with, well, I already kind of wanted to go to college. The idea was already kind of there because I was like, I really love art. I'd really love to pursue art. And my husband at the time, actually, we weren't even married when I started college. And I had met his mom, and him and his mom were both like, yeah, you should really go to college. Like, this would be really great for you. So I went and got my associate's degree in art, loved it, took a year break. We got married, we bought the house. Then I was like, I'd really love to go back for a bachelor's degree, you know. Um, I didn't want to go back for a bachelor's degree originally because I was like, financially, I don't think that I can afford this. This is terrifying to me. And his mom was encouraging, and she's like, no, 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 go. It's fine. I'll take care of it. So I go and get my bachelor's degree. And it was the first year at U Albany that I started to have that little bit of a moment of like, oh my God, is this marriage right for me? Because now I'm surrounded by peers, and I've been in this marriage for about a year and a half now. And I start having all these eye-opening moments. Um, I took this really interesting course my first semester at U Albany called Studio Experiments in Visual Thinking. And till this day, probably one of the most interesting college courses I've ever taken. And we had so many different eye-opening moments in that class because we were always creating these experiments, and we weren't just creating regular tangible art. We were creating thought processes to put our peers through. Like, we're going to create this experiment, and we're gonna spend a few days processing how we're going to like set this up and put our peers through these experiments and these um maybe visual or psychological experiments that were sometimes really, really weird. But it made me start thinking a lot more. I actually talk a little bit more about this in a chapter in my book. um and there was this moment where I realized I was like, wow, I really feel like I got married too young. It was so frustrating for me to be like around my peers and being like, wow, like, oh my God, like this person makes me feel this kind of way that I never thought somebody could make me feel. Or, oh my gosh, this person wants to invite me to go do things with other people that are my age. I never thought that that was going to happen because I had felt so isolated in high school that I was like, oh, okay, now being in college and starting to open up my mind more, there's all these things that I just didn't realize. Now, I think the tipping point for me was I had gone through so many different things in my marriage in that short amount of time, from 21 to, so I got married 2016, and like, started college 2000 what 17, finished it 2019. So many different things had happened in that time where I was like, suspicious about my marriage, suspicious about the way my husband treats me, suspicious about the fact that I am not happy and don't have a lot of say over the things that I can and can't do with my own body, my mind, the things that I want to do, the art that I want to create. And I was just getting so angry. I was just starting to get so angry. And then my last semester of college, mind you, I did college in three and a half semester. Like, I finished a semester early because I took a winter semester and like crammed in a bunch of online courses. So either way, last semester I decided to take this women's history course because I needed something to like fulfill a credit, and this class happened to be open at the time that I could attend class. So I was like, awesome, women's history, would love to learn about that. And when I'm taking this when I'm taking this class, I was like, mind you, I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. Nobody told me about these things. Like I said, I was very small minded, uneducated, kind of dumb. Hadn't been introduced this information. Like, I vaguely kind of knew about it because like I had seen some things on, maybe YouTube show, like different education things, whatever. It had briefly come up in other classes, but never to the depth that I had in this class. Mind you, I didn't grow up with TV. Really didn't listen to the radio that much other than the stuff that my mom wanted to listen to. She was big into Christian radio music. So I wasn't being introduced to these specific things. And I was like, oh my God, women didn't have the right to do this or that or this or that. Now, mind you, when I got married, I lost control of my bank accounts. My credit cards, everything was merged with him. So I didn't have my own money. And I was a full-time college student working some weddings on the weekend, working little part-time jobs here and there. I wasn't making enough money to really do anything on my own. It was just more of play money, and I wasn't even able to use that for myself. That went into his account that he would use to pay the bills. Like I remember one time I spent like $20 on a wig from like Amazon, or I had gone out to a store at the mall and bought a wig, and he was so angry. Why would you waste that money? Why would you do that? Mind you, this man smoked freaking 2 packs of cigarettes, like maybe more than that, a week. And I'm like, that's literally more than what I just bought on my wig. And you do that every week. I did this once because I wanted something to create with and be fun. Like, I always loved drag. I always loved dressing up and being crazy. And he hated it. He thought it was weird. He thought it was queer. And why would you do that? That's so disgusting. Even like that, his views on like anything to do with that community is depressing. It's depressing, especially since I'm such a big part of that community now. So hateful, etc. And I just, taking that class made me realize, oh my God, this man is so small minded. This man is so angry at women. What the hell? What am I doing? Etc. etc. And so I finally decided to leave him. I was 23. This is 2019. And I actually, like, the first chapter of my book actually is very detailed overview of the day that the night I left my husband. And sort of the events that proceeded immediately after that. And I don't want to dive too much into it because I don't want to spoil the book and the details in it. But I do want to say that like the day that I left him, like I had kind of had a lot of these moments leading up to that day over the like couple months leading up to it where I was getting really angry. I was really upset. I was like, you're not listening to me. And there were so many times where I felt like I wasn't heard, and I would be like, hey, like this thing that you do makes me feel like this. I don't like doing this. And I remember so many times where I would tell him, I want to go out and do this. And his response would be like, sure, you can go and do that, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm going to be upset. And you're going to know that I'm upset. And it was that manipulation where it was like, sure, do it, but I will not like you. Or I will this, and that. Like, even to the point, I remember one time I dyed my hair. Like, I got a balayage. My sister is my hairdresser. And I wanted to experiment. I was like, hey, let's do something new. She did like this beautiful balayage, loved my hair. I remember him being like, I don't know why you would do that. It makes you less attractive. Or I did a photo shoot one time and I had this orange wig on and these glasses and I loved it. I looked so fabulous. I was like, oh, I'm channeling Lady Gaga. Mind you, I always loved Lady Gaga, channeling her. And I just remember being so proud of how the images came out. And I showed him and he was just like, ew, that looks ugly. Why would you do that? That looks so weird. I don't know why you would do that. So it was like all of my art, all of my weirdness, all my different personalities that I wanted to let shine through, because I have a lot of different characters inside myself that I feel like I like to bring to life, which is what I love doing now with my OnlyFans. Is like I can dress up and be this whole different character, and you know, it makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I'm like, wow, I can be strong within this character that I've created. And he would shut those down. He hated it. He thought it was weird. Thought it was ugly. Thought it was, why would you do that to yourself? You just look better when you're just your plain natural self. He always wanted my hair black. And I was like, why? Like, he just wanted me to look like this innocent little victim that he could just control. And anytime he tried to be powerful in any way, that would get shut down. So that women's history course really opened my mind and gave me the courage to be able to finally, like, I was like, wow, I am literally living in a bubble and I need to break out. I remember there was like a test that was supposed to be coming up at the end of the week. And I knew I was not going to be able to do it. So I ended up going to my women's history professor's class, her office. I went to her office, and I never really had a solo conversation with her at all, but I always sat in the front of the class. I loved that class. It was like one of the big lecture halls, and I wanted to be front and center so I could really, really participate. And so she was very aware of who I was because of my presence in the class. And I went to her office and I just broke down. And I was like, I just left my husband like a day or two ago. I know I'm not going to be able to do this test. I'm struggling to find a place to live. I'm struggling to just be able to not fucking lose my mind and hurt myself. I am not going to be able to do this test. Is there any way that you can give me an extension on the test? The next day was class. And I showed up and I was sitting front and center as I always do. And she was just like, hey guys, so just so you know, we're going to postpone the test. There's been something that's come up, and I realized that I need to like postpone it. So we're just going to postpone the test for everybody to next week, etc. And she looked at me, and I just remember feeling like, oh my God, someone heard me. Somebody knows that I'm going through something so hard right now that they're able to postpone this for me. So that was then my journey to like this finding myself had started while I'm on my last semester of college. That's so stressful to begin with, your last semester of college. Like I still had like a good like I think month and a half before college was over, that I'm now trying to like navigate this while also like trying to find a place to live, while also like just trying to figure out who the hell I am without my husband. Now, mind you, when I left, the day that I left, I told you I had joint bank accounts. I had no money to my name other than the money from the gig that we did the night I left him. So we did a gig together the night that I left him. He was playing guitar, I was singing. And we made $300. So I had the $300 cash from the event. The day after the event, because I left him that night, I went back to the house to do stuff. I left his $150 for him. So I only had $150 to my name. I immediately went and opened up a bank account in my own name and put that money in that account. That was all that I had to pay for gas, food, literally anything that I could possibly need. And luckily I had some weddings coming up, so I knew that I had a little bit of money coming in, but I was broke. I was broke. I didn't have a place that I could call my own. I was bouncing from like, I started off staying in my brother's, like he had like a bedroom that was the size of a closet. And I moved my computer, my bag, my camera equipment, and everything that I knew I was going to need for the next like week or two, I grabbed and brought with me and stayed there. And then I stayed there for a couple of nights, and then a friend offered to have me go and live in their space. And they wanted rent for the month, and it was, I could barely afford it. I think it was like $300 for the month, and I was like, or maybe it was 500. I think it was 500, and I was like, I literally can't afford this, but I'm going to make it work, because like all the money that I was making was now going into rent. I remember like being on my own for the first time, and I could not afford groceries. I called my mom up and I was like, Mom, I can't afford groceries. Like, I'm literally struggling. So she gave me $100, and I went, and I remember buying a huge, like, 5-pound bag of carrots and like a 10-pound bag of rice and like this dressing. And I was just eating rice and carrots for like the first couple weeks, because I was like, I can't afford anything. And then like sometimes when I was at college, I would get friends who would buy me like, oh, we'll buy you a euro, we'll buy you a sandwich or something like that. So I made a buy. I mean, I made a buy. Um, and then I moved from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. And it just kind of bounced around for a while. I never really had a home, nothing that felt like a home for years. And all while this was, couple months trying to finish my degree, bouncing around, trying to find enough jobs that I can make money. Mind you, at this time, I had started like severely drinking, and not like the drinking that I do now where I'm like, when I drink now, I go out to have a good time. If I'm drinking, it's because I want to have a good time. When I was drinking at that point in my life, I was drinking to drown out any feeling that I had. I just wanted to be numb, completely numb. And I put myself in a lot of dangerous positions because of that. I started to become somebody who was unreliable. I felt really unlovable. I was really, really, really angry. And I was dealing with so much pain and hurt that I was like trying to just even process like how do I be a person by myself? And I just, till this day, that has been something that has been so hard. It's like that self-identity, trying to find out who you are and how to love yourself after that kind of relationship. Now, mind you, I was with him from the age of 17 to 23, and I didn't even officially get divorced, so I could like be officially detached from him until I was 25. And so that had been, and I met him when I was 15. So that had been like a better part of a decade of processing all these different things that had happened. I think the thing that I'm trying to get across with telling you guys this deep and personal story and journey is that you can fucking go through hell and back and still make it out the other side and learn how to love yourself again. You know, I literally went through hell and back in that relationship. And I don't even think I'm going to deep dive into the sexual trauma on a podcast like this, because I feel like that's so deep and personal, that it's hard for me to talk about. And it's a lot of stuff that I've written in my book. And I feel like that's something that I need to save for that. Like, you know, I want to keep writing this. Hopefully one day it gets published. If it doesn't, maybe I'll just write it as a blog up on my website or something like that. But if that's something that you're willing to look into, eventually once that's done, that I'll dive a lot deeper into more of this story when it comes to that. So I just kind of want to wrap up by saying that, like, you can have somebody brainwash you, manipulate you, control you, turn you into a completely different person. And you can still find a way to survive that. And I'm not saying that it's easy. Oh my God, these last few years have been some of the most eye-opening, lonely, terrifying, and scary years of my life. The last two have been pretty great, you know, living on my own and starting to learn all of these things about myself that I didn't know I could uncover has been really, really exciting. And I will never regret leaving. That was the healthiest thing that I could have ever done in that relationship, was to leave, because it was so toxic. Like, even looking back to the beginning and the fact that this man was cheating with another woman and then didn't tell his family about me for like a year into the relationship. Like, there were so many red flags at the beginning that it's not like I avoided them. It's that I really, truly did not know any better. And this man was so smart and he was so good at his manipulation that he just made everything seem better. You know, he was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. You know, this is how love is. This is this and this and that. Leaving that relationship and finding myself. Now, mind you, I've had some pretty shitty relationships after that, but that was the true first relationship that like fucked me up, traumatized me. And like, mind you, when you're that young, your brain has not fully developed So you're at such an influential age where things can be taken in, and you're learning them, and that sort of becomes your religion, your culture, your sort of baseline for everything else in your life. So you kind of have to like relearn everything. And like I said, just wrapping up, if you have been through something that is so traumatizing that it changes you as a person, just know that space and time are the best healers, and that you need to learn to forgive yourself because it wasn't your fault. A lot of the times we put the blame on ourselves so much because, well, why was I so dumb to let myself do these things and have this happen? Because you're young. You were manipulated. You were groomed. It is not your fault. And I'm saying this so that way when I watch this back, I can be like, wow, it was not my fault. Because there's some times where I still feel like it was. And it's not. And you can learn to love yourself after that much trauma and know that you are still strong and beautiful and brave, and that you hold so much power that you didn't know that you have. You just have to unlock it. It's kind of like superheroes. They don't know that they have this power until there's this moment in their life where they're ready and they can unlock it. And that's me right now. There's so much that I have to unlock and put out into the world. So for everybody out there, just know that you are amazing. You are beautiful. You are truly a unique and beautiful person, but you have to find that within yourself, and you have to remove everything toxic in your life that is holding you back to be able to be that amazing person that you can be. So thank you so much for listening today, guys. Again, I'm Bethany Autumn, your host with the Bear All podcast. I hope you all have a wonderful and inspirational day. And don't forget to learn to love yourself and to forgive yourself when it's needed. Bye, guys.